Have you ever heard a song that wasn't goth, but just felt goth? These are the songs that made me fall in love with darkness some of them before I even knew what darkness really was and even what goth was. And some that just kind of remind me of goth music. Because when you're into that culture and you're into that sound, sometimes you catch that vibe somewhere else outside of what would normally be considered your goth music. And that can always feel a little inspiring and sometimes a little scary. It's like, do you tell your friends? I don't know. It depends on the song. Some songs just get encapsulated into the goth environment because we all agree that they have that feel. So let me know what songs you think are having that goth feel for you, but might not necessarily be considered goth. And extra kudos if you mention songs that are really out there that you might think you're just completely out of left field for saying. Those are the songs I really want to hear. But anyway, I'm going to start with some of mine that some you might absolutely agree with. Others you might be like, I don't know where she's coming from. So either way, I'm always excited to hear other people's points of view. So we're going to start out with what I think everyone might agree on, Chris Isaak, Wicked Games. I was a kid when this song came out, and I specifically remember that music video because it was such a high contrast white-black music video, and it featured Helena Christensen, who became one of my idols when I was a little girl. I mean, she was with Michael Hutchinson from In Excess. She was just very much a late 80s, early 90s queen. And there was a dark vibe to that video. And then the guitar, doo-doo, and all that, just, it had a feel. Like I could definitely see someone dancing out on the dance floor to that number. So it definitely could go into that category. In fact, it's almost like a Tropical Dead Can Dance song-ish. Anybody feel me on that one? Second one, kind of in the same era, maybe a little later down the line in the early 90s. I was still a youngster, still not into goth culture, but Mazzy Star, Fade Into You, a 90s, early 90s, almost grunge-esque era classic song. Very moody, very sweepy. It definitely, I think, summed up the dark vibe of the early 90s for sure. And the singer Hope Sandoval, I mean, she embodied what a goth bitch is, didn't she? She had that look. She had everything about her, an aloof attitude. She would have been swept up into our culture easy peasy. At least that's what I think. Another classic song, which I actually danced to at my little virtual goth party I had the other day here at TikTok. I love Portishead's Rhodes. Now, I don't know if that song is necessarily considered a goth song. I may have heard it in a club here and there, but I feel like that song, in fact, Portishead in general, is just completely accepted by goth culture as being part of that genre. All of their music has this amazing vibe to it. It's danceable, it's groovy, it's dark, it's melodic, it's very 90s, and one of my favorite bands of all times. Also, it's a key song in the Tank Girl soundtrack for those 90s fans out there. Another 90s-esque track would be Massive Attack, Teardrop. That song, I mean, a lot of that trip-hop music in the 90s obviously got enfolded into the goth culture. So it was a song I heard a lot. You know, it was more like when you were hanging out at a friend's house than actually on the dance floor at a goth club. But that song, Massive Attack in general, was definitely a big movement in 90s goth culture. I guess you could say a lot of these songs are from the 90s because that's kind of when I was really discovering music. That was when I turned from a young girl into a goth baby bat. So the music within those years that kind of was not goth, those are the ones I picked up on. But I did want to bring up another song that's actually an 80s song that I remember going to a goth club in San Francisco and they played, and I was just like, never would have thought to hear this there, but watching everybody dance on the dance floor to it in the fog, it just brought it full circle for me. And that is Pixies' Where Is My Mind. that song already has a little bit of a hauntingness to it, and the beat is kind of like, it makes you move. So I was not surprised to hear that song on a dance floor once. And maybe it was like more of a new wave goth night, you know, how those two mix together so well. We could go deep into the similarities between those genres. But I just remember that moment thinking, gosh, this is like kind of more like a garage rock song, but somehow it worked perfectly within the goth club, within the fog and the smoke. I guess it's, well, depends on what year it was, if there was smoke in there or not, how many cloves were burning. Remember, you could smoke cloves inside. That was crazy. Anyway, I digress. So those are like definitely the key songs that I think we can all agree on. So just to start the game going on songs that might not be considered goth, and maybe I'm pulling out of left field, I'm gonna give you a couple different tracks. So you tell me if I'm crazy. Britney Spears, Toxic. I know, Britney Spears. I, out of all people, am not a Britney Spears fan. I would more be into Christina Aguilera. In fact, back in my Y2K goth era, I did have a Christina Aguilera lunchbox. I have it. Let me get it real fast. It's been in a window, so all the color is faded out of it. But yeah, so this was my thing, was being a Christina Aguilera fan and being goth. It was sort of like my tongue-in-cheek, like, I can have something pop culture and also be dark and gloomy. I was one of those people. Anyway, so yeah, when I say Britney Spears, it's really coming out of left field. But Toxic, tell me, that song would not make a good little dance song on the dance floor. Tell me you can see yourself dancing to it, because I can. And for me, because dancing was such an important part of like going out to clubs, that is why I picked that song, because it's something that I think I could see moving to on the dance floor. Moving up into more modern times, but still a couple years back, Grimes' Violence. This song, like when I heard it, it reminded me a little bit of Grimes' first album. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like trip hop mixed with kind of dance industrial music, with like the wispy vocal kind of going over it. There's lots of echoes. I could relate to what was going on. And that song, for sure, I could see people dancing on the dance floor. The beat almost sounds like something from an industrial band. So I don't know. What do you think? Am I crazy? Am I coming out of left field with these? Let me know. So yeah, I just wanted to see if there was anybody else out there who feels songs that might not be goth, but have that feel to them. Let me know in the comments what other songs you can think of. I'm sure there's just anything, because we all come from different backgrounds. We all listen to different music, so I want to know what you think. And thank you so much for watching. Check out my band Bones in Black. Subscribe for more this 90s nostalgia, music, goth culture, and I will see you on the dance floor.